We talk today now just about 10 million retirement savings accounts open so far. And indeed, when you look at the membership that covered both the that existed before the pension reforms of 2004 to date, only about 10 million, basically, in total membership. So there is a lot to cover, and the market is huge out there. The issue is trying to change the culture of a people, the belief of a people about a particular financial service and financial product. Before the reforms of 2004, pensions were just for those who worked in the formal sector, largely public sector. And so management of these pensions were largely really mishandled, and a lot of corruption, lack of adequate and robust documentations and database of pensioners. So all that has to change given the fact that pension has now been made a retail business, and so there is some introduction of private sector institutions into the management of pension. And the only public sector institution, the National Pension Commission, that is involved is just a regulator setting up policies. Indeed, this is the first time we're having a regulator of pension matters in the countries. And we're all coming, all of us together, to ensure that all the various financial services and products are made available to the people in the informal sector. Under the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, the pension sector has been mandated, has been given the target of covering 40 million Nigerians under the pension scheme by the end of the implementation cycle of the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. So coincidentally, the Pension Reform Act 2014 have a specific provision that the pension can actually be made voluntary, or is made voluntary by that provision. And so Nigerians of all sort of employment could actually make voluntary contribution. Even those who are mandatorily covered to make contributions under the scheme, they can actually make additional voluntary contributions. So it is this provision that actually gave the rise to the idea that, okay, we could make the pension available to the informal sector, as a voluntary scheme for them. And so the micro pension came into space, and the idea is that we introduce a macro pension scheme that is going to take the peculiarities of the informal sector and allow them to participate in the scheme so as to have, number one, sustainable income during their old ages, and also have the ability to participate in the various schemes that actually those who are participating in the contributory pension scheme could benefit from. And indeed, when we look at the economy as a whole, the pension reform has allowed Nigeria to build a pool of funds that will support various development in the Nigerian economy. For example, if you look at how the money was generated from when contribution was started in May 2006, to date, we have close to 14.7 trillion naira, which is basically around 35 to 36 billion US dollars. Now, this has all been invested in Nigeria, apart from the little portion of it that had been invested outside the country before the pension reform, which the law allows to remain in offshore investment. Indeed, when we look at the whole idea is, can we generate more money that will serve as a catalyst to Nigeria's economic development? So this pension scheme has proved to actually be very effective in that. A contribution by 10 million Nigerians is already close to 36 billion US dollars as of the moment, and is basically over 90% invested in various sectors of the Nigerian economy. So when you look at the enabling environment, yes, the regulator exists. The institutions that are to manage the pension scheme exist as well. They've already been licensed under the provisions of the Pension Reform Act 2014, the pension fund administrators and the pension fund custodians. So really, we have the institutions, the regulator, and the administrators and the custodians. They're all available. What is indeed not so pronounced is the fact that we are still trying to establish the necessary supporting infrastructure that will ensure the 100%, I would say, success of the implementation of the macro pension scheme. However, the pension industry came together, both the regulator and the regulated entities formed an implementation committee, and this implementation committee has started to move really ahead towards this direction, done a lot of work, appointed agents who would sort of provide some just support towards registration, while the basic administrative work and all the administrative work is done by the licensed institutions. So really, we all work together and also trying to promote the participation of women and the vulnerable, in the society, like the physically challenged and so on, to participate successfully into the financial system with the various, available financial services and products in the country. So yes, use of technology is critical because then it will cut off a lot of incidental costs to the implementation of the contributory pension scheme, and indeed all the various initiatives of under the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. So it will allow people to register at their localities, to allow people to send contributions from the comfort of their shops and various workplaces, and even from the comfort of their bedrooms. And indeed, when it comes to withdrawals from the account, also technology would allow them to achieve this effectively. Technology is needed to aid, and provide support in all of this. But the most important thing is that, yes, we are trying to achieve this. We are not yet there, but we are working fully at the back of our minds, aware that this is what we want to achieve. A comprehensive package would make it much easier and make it more robust to actually push for implementation, as people then will find it much easier. When you look at countries that have successfully really deployed technology, like Rwanda with the Ejahoza, and then when you look at India and some other countries that have really been able to deploy technology, all these services that I mentioned, right from registration to benefits administration, are much easier. And that's what we need to also achieve. And I believe that's what the Joint Committee is trying to achieve, with the support of the regulator, with the support of all those that are key players into the implementation of the macro pension scheme. A project like the pinBox book project is very important because it brings in various experiences from across the globe. Regulators and practitioners across the globe could actually go through the book and then look at these experiences and then learn from them. And indeed, what worked in a country may not necessarily work in every other country, but at least people could then tweak it and find a way of resolving the problem. And I have no doubt in my mind that a lot of the challenges that have been overcome, that have been recorded in these chapters of the book, would definitely serve as learning points, and they remain with us, for a very long time, in as much as these problems remain so important and influential in the way we implement macro pension schemes, across the globe.